Hi all, welcome back to MVC training sessions. Today we'll see about URL routing, how it is mapping for the request in MVC. So as I said, URL routing, it's nothing but pattern matching system that enables mapping of incoming request to the URL routing. So how it is happening and how it is mapping your URL to your routing models. So if you look at the default URL routing of MVC is it contains something like name, and it contains action method and ID parameter. These three are the segments available default root container. So the name represents the controller name. This is nothing but controller name which you are creating or defining while you run or execute. And action method is nothing but the the method name which you are defining in the controller. So by default it is index for all the controllers. The MVC application will be creating while you adding a controller to your project. If you want to change this index to some other name, you can specify that name while you creating a view. So because the view name and the action method should be same. So the third parameter is ID parameter. That is an optional by default. If you want to specify your URL require a parameter kind of thing, like integer kind of thing or string kind of thing or object kind of thing, you can define the parameter here. It defines parameter presence in the URL. By default it is optional, so no need of specifying here. Default action method for all the controllers is index. So these three segments are forming the URL routing. So if you look at this, it will be something like the controller slash action method close slash ID. So this is the syntax of your URL routing. So when you run the application, you will see the request first goes to the root config.cs. So if you look at the MVC project here, if you go and see here in root config.cs, you will have this root config with different type of roots added to your root collection table. Firstly, this particular thing will be defined in the global.asx file, so where it has register roots. This register roots will call when your application start execution the first time, and second time onwards it won't come to here. It will directly go to the root table and will look for the relevant root and pass it to the HTTP handlers, and goes to the controller and goes to the view and showing the response. But very first time it starts from the application start method. It goes to register roots table where we'll be defining all the roots. Here I was defined home is a controller and my method is an index. If you go and see in the home controller, so I will be having index method here. So when I hit this method, the controller will be execute this return view method. So this will call the relevant view which is defined in the views. So if you look at this root config.cs, so you have a the provision to specify the root URL pattern. that system supports, or you want to give some landing request like so and so way, or you require something like my default landing page or default landing request. It contains the format like this, like I need to pass some object, or I need to pass some integer value, something kind of thing. Then you can specify it here, and that is going to be executed at runtime. So not only this home index, like if you want to say that looking at this index, this is the default name I'm specifying it. So if you want to change it, you can change it to your specified method and you can run it. So by default, if you look at here, by putting a breakpoint, your request comes to here, and first it will add your request to your root table, and then once the request is passing to your routing table and root collection table, then it will start executing. This is the first time when you run the application. Once all requests are added to your root collection table, then it will execute the relevant controller method. So here my controller method is an index action method. So it looks for home controller index method. Okay, so this is the way of defining the root URLs. Okay, so how you are going to define a constraints for a root? To restrict the parameters in the URL, we use this constraints concept. That means, so after this default mapping here, you also specify if you want constraints. So here you can specify your constraints if you want to, like I need to pass integer value, then the id equal to something like /d plus. So like this, you can specify constraints here if you want to change the URL root. So generally, we will be using regular expressions or object notations to change the or restrict the parameters. So that it will restrict the URL based on the constraints you are specifying in the root config.cs file. So when you run this application, it will add these constraints to your root collection table, and then when the controller executes the method, it considers the specified format. So this way, we will be specifying the root mapping structure here, pattern structure. So by default, this only coming out when you add a project. But if you want it, if you want to add any constraint parameters, you can add it like this. So hope this clears. So like what is the default URL routing mapping and how we are going to map it.